Hello everyone, and welcome to the overview for Blitz TCG, a multiplayer trading card game in part using blockchain technology on the Ergo platform to deliver and facilitate digital ownership of cards for players. I am very excited to dig into the weeds with you all today about our project, give you an overview of things to come, and hopefully address any immediate questions all of you have in the comment section below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We'll dig right in. My name is Mick, and as you can see here on the top left of the screen, I am dressed in a Frieza costume, and on the right-hand side of the screen, that is my brother. We enjoy traveling, and this was one of our trips to Japan. Japan is frankly our favorite country to visit, and we try to go each year when we can. COVID has, of course, put a damper on that, but yet, here we are. I am the primary project lead and primary game designer for Blitz TCG, and I will be the one conducting the majority, well, really all of the presentation today. A little bit more about me. Who am I? I come from an engineering and mathematics background from James Madison University. I've worked in healthcare IT for the past 7 years or so, where my responsibilities consisted of public speaking, presentations, IT management, team leadership, director level leadership, and all sorts of things in the healthcare IT space. If you can name it, I've probably spoken to it, done it, or at least seen it once or twice. Some of my passions, I've been playing games since I can remember. I think some of my earliest pictures of myself are actually me playing on big CRT screens on the Super Nintendo and Atari systems and whatnot growing up. I've stuck with it my entire life, moving more so into competitive gaming in recent years, and probably, maybe not just recent years, probably in the past 10, 15 years, really, I've stuck to competitive gaming. So I've created a YouTube channel, a Twitch channel. I got really good at a game called Overwatch, grew a small platform of subscribers and followers on YouTube and Twitch. I am also very much into collecting cards. You know, come to find out, maybe a requirement for developing a good trading card game is knowing a little bit about cards. So I've been collecting and appraising and trading, selling, playing card games for several years, and that's a screenshot of my Dark Magician Girl collection there. Really nerding out for this one. Of course, I have an interest in cryptocurrency. I got back on the bandwagon when ETH was around, I don't know, $100. I wish I bought more of it at the time, because I might not be talking to any of you right now. If I did, I'd be in my Lambo on a yacht somewhere. We already talked about me liking to travel. That's another picture of my brother and I, this time in China. And I also volunteer to teach a gymnastics class on the weekends. That's a little bit about me. I think it's always good to humanize the face behind these type of projects, because otherwise, you know, who can you really trust nowadays? All right, the goal and agenda. So the goal for today, of course, is to introduce some of the core concepts of Blitz, specifically looking at things like timelines, progress, challenges, and even more specifically on the agenda itself, we'll be comparing what typical TCGs do versus what Blitz plans to do. What are our team principles, i.e. our design principles? What our roadmap currently looks like, and you know, I'll probably say this a few times, a lot of this is very flexible right now. Any key progress we've made in the past couple months, and then what I think are the biggest risks to project success. I honestly, as an aside here, maybe on a soapbox, so to speak, I wish more projects would address and be transparent about their risks. So we're going to cover that today. All right, so other trading card games versus Blitz. What does it mean to create something unique? Well, let's just briefly summarize what other trading card games do. And for all you trading card game aficionados out there, do understand and trust me that I know that this is a very high-level overview, and you know, we could have a whole separate, and maybe we will one day have a whole separate video just on digging into the mechanics, rule sets, and strategies behind designing current day trading card games. But anyways, at a high level for the majority of the audience, this is what you need to know. When you play a trading card game, right, a collectible digital, multiplayer, really even physical trading card game, cards are typically drawn pseudo-randomly. What that means is you shuffle a deck of, let's say, 40 cards, and you draw cards at regular intervals throughout the match, right? And you don't, for the most part, you don't know what you're going to draw. Many times there's no real incentive for playing quickly. In other words, even though it might be frowned upon to spend a minute taking your turn, oftentimes there are no incentives for, say, making a move in 5 seconds versus 1 minute. There is limited engagement outside of the cards themselves, and what I mean by that is oftentimes with trading card games, the main interaction, of course, is with the cards themselves. So for some folks, that can be a bit boring, if you will, right? The only thing they really have to look at are the cards, and nothing else is really going on to interest them. And then, of course, specifically with digital trading card games, you do not own those cards, right? So if you go into Hearthstone right now and you purchase their latest expansion pack of cards, or a set of cards, excuse me, you don't own those cards. So tomorrow, if Blizzard were to shut down, that's it, right? You no longer have access to those cards. They don't exist anymore in any sense of the word, at least as far as you're concerned, and really anybody else playing the game is concerned. So let's talk about a little bit how Blitz is different. So first and foremost, and it's going to take me a little bit of time to explain this, so I'm gonna skim past it for now. We have a few slides dedicated to looking at this stuff later. First and foremost, the entire deck is accessible from the start of the match. That doesn't mean you can use every card. It just means that at certain points in the game, you will have enough resources to purchase the cards you think should be purchased to push your strategy forward. There is a chess-like time bank system. If any of you are familiar with the Blitz style of chess, it is exactly like that. There will be on the game board NPCs. You'll be able to use general abilities, and general, we'll take a look at an example of one of those later on, is basically your deck's focal point, their main person, their strategist. They are the character that you're choosing for that deck. You can gain golden XP, which is how you purchase the cards from the store during a match. Golden XP, of course, do not roll over into subsequent matches. It is simply used in the current match to purchase and utilize cards during said match. And then by utilizing Ergo, which is our blockchain of choice, we can mint tokens and NFTs and collectibles and all these other buzzwords that you all know about, but really none of those buzzwords really matter. What matters is it creates an out-of-game and in-game ecosystem for players, which I am quite passionate about, despite some of the negative, maybe public opinion on the matter. All right, so let's look at something cool. That's a lot of text, so I want to mix it up with some pictures for us today. So this is an early render of our game board. Things have already changed a little bit since this, but for the most part, it hits the high points, right? So let's quickly walk through this. On the left-hand side, you have your store, and this is the UI that'll be used to search for cards in your current deck to then purchase if you have enough gold and a high enough level. Specifically, your general has a high enough level, and by purchasing those cards, they will be added to your hand, from which you can of course play them on the field. So let's just pretend here for a moment I purchase a card from the store. It appears in my hand right beneath, or I guess on top of, my generals bar, and if it's my turn, I can play those cards on the field. Pretty simple, nothing special there. So let's start talking about some of the special stuff. Number one, there will be two halves of the field, and I think this is a little bit unique. Some card games have started doing this, online card games. So basically, you'll be able to see your opponent's side of the field, and they'll be able to collect and use different, I guess, game board archetypes for their field, and so will you. There's an NPC spawner in the middle of the map, from which the NPCs will spawn that will be attackable. And these NPCs we're not going to dig too deeply into today, but they can be attacked instead of attacking enemy cards for gold and experience. There are also a few other unique factors to Blitz. One, there is a front line and a back line. The front line is effectively open season for attacks. The back line, as long as a wall is up, means that your opponent cannot attack the cards. So, again, without going into too many details, there are basically, maybe a way to put it is hidden card mechanics in Blitz. And then you see down here just a mock-up of placeholders for general abilities. So each general will have 4 abilities, and as the general levels up, which is what this little bar indicates, i.e. the amount of experience you've gained, you'll gain access to different general abilities. And those abilities can, or at least are planned to be used no matter which player's turn it is. So I'm hoping, and we're hoping, to design abilities that, depending on what your opponent is doing, you might decide to activate General Ability 3 to counteract the strategy you think your opponent is employing against you. So that is a very rough and high-level overview of the game board. As I'll link to you in a second, or at least show you in a second, there is a white paper that gets much more into the details. Let's take a look at our cards. This will probably be our #1 seller here. Potentially the strongest card in the game by the time we get done. But regardless of that, let's break it down. So on the front of our card, we have an attack value, a health value, a gold value, an XP value, in addition, a rarity, the card name, the race and/or faction, the card interactions and/or abilities, and the level requirement. I think most of these are pretty clear-cut as to what purpose they serve, so I'm not going to belabor those points. Feel free to ask questions in the comments or come to the Discord if you want to learn more about that. This is the back of the card. In my honest opinion, this is my favorite part of all the UI we've designed so far. Max, our concept artist and UI designer, is phenomenal, and I think he did an excellent job designing the back of our trading card. This is just a notice to anybody that's made it this far in the video. There is an ongoing art competition, although it does end May 6th, so I expect by the time you watch this for it to probably have been concluded. But people are drawing some pretty amazing things for a chance to basically work with us long term and design more cards for our trading card game. I love the idea of working with multiple artists. I think having only one version of a character in a certain style is kind of boring. You know, you want a lot of characters with a lot of styles that span different interests, right? That's really the goal. You don't want things to be too stale. People get bored of that pretty quickly. As I mentioned, that was a very rough intro to the content. I highly recommend you go to our website and read the white paper if you want to read the entire current rule set, albeit tentative. Take a look at the mechanics, some more mock-ups, so on and so forth. Alright, let's talk about principles. I think it is extremely important to discuss principles for any team or project, and I would hesitate to invest or be a part of any project that doesn't speak to their principles. So this is certainly an overused slogan. A lot of people say this, but don't really know what it means. So what does gameplay first mean? Well, in my opinion, it means that by creating a fun, engaging, and low barrier to entry gameplay, the other aspects of the game will naturally prosper, right? So all that means to say is if you make a game that people like, they will stick with it, support it, and it will be successful. If it's not fun and it's not engaging and it has too high of a barrier to entry, it will not prosper. Doesn't matter if it's a blockchain game, doesn't matter if it's a physical trading card game. It doesn't matter. It has to be fun and people have to want to play it. So, putting our money where our mouths are, what that means to us and what that means to me, number one, just given the amount of times I've been let down with these early release games, is that we will not be selling anything in-game collectible-wise, card-wise, token-wise, or anything related until the game is playable. Might not be finished, and it might not be perfect, but it will at least be playable by the time we sell product, specifically in-game product. You know, maybe we want to do some merchandise or something like that, but in-game product will not be sold until the game is playable. Transparency, this is a 4-letter word, or at least it should be in the crypto space. Transparency. So you will always have access to me and the other team members on our Discord, Twitter, YouTube. Almost everything will be disclosed that we're doing, not trying to hide anything from anybody. And of course, open to feedback about balancing when we get to that point, tokenomics and the like. So please do stay engaged. Many of you have already suggested many smart things, and it's helping make the game better. And then the next principle here, and I would say my top 3, is build simple. And so what does build simple mean? Well, build simple simply means we're a small team, right? We only have a couple developers. We have limited funds. So if you start doing a bunch of custom coding and custom work to stitch something together, number 1, it opens you up for security vulnerabilities, and number 2, it becomes much more difficult to maintain with the limited resources that you have. So whenever possible, even if it costs a little more, we should utilize known solutions, known third parties, known platforms that ensure our game is safe, secure, stable, and hopefully successful. So to recap that, we need to design a good game. First and foremost, the game must be fun. We should stick to the core principles that I mentioned, and in addition to that, refine concepts through playtesting. Be sure to remain open to feedback. Never overpromise. In fact, don't promise anything ever, and never commit to a deadline, right? Never say, we promise to get XYZ released by XYZ date. I think it's okay to have softball estimates, but always keep them as softball estimates. So, tangential to that, let's talk about our loose timeline goals, i.e. our roadmap. So very quickly, at this point in time, we are, I would say, well into the planning and team assembly phase, if not past it at this point. So we're on track to begin development in June successfully with the front-end developer, hopefully with the back-end developer, and then of course be on track for some of these future milestones. I'm not going to dig into each of these, but maybe at a high level. So right, planning and team assembly is effectively putting together the team, designing the game mechanics, coming up with a basic rule set, at least for initial play testing, that sort of thing, white papers, or social media, getting the word out there. Pre-alpha development is exactly what it sounds like. It's trying to put together a play testable version of the game. It doesn't have to be online. It doesn't even have to have user logins at this point. You know, it's just getting to the point that we can test it. So then, you know, hopefully within the next 6 months or so, we have something that allows us to play test the game, play test the mechanics. And ideally, we begin doing some of the blockchain development that we'll talk about in a bit to facilitate the blockchain backend of the game. Ideally by end of year, tentatively at this point, if things stay on track as they have been, it's a reachable goal. I'd like to have an alpha release, which just basically means we can open it up for more of you to play the game. And then early next year, we can, after the game's been relatively vetted, we know it will work, we know you can play it, then we will start minting cards and packs and selling those to the public. And then, you know, once all that's successful, because of course the game would continue to be developed when all these other things are happening, ideally by sometime mid next year, we have a beta that is able to be more widely distributed and played by all of you. So what have we done so far? Well, as I mentioned, we're just getting through the planning phase. I've onboarded a few more team members, thankfully. So Max is one of our concept artists, and he's the one who designed all the cool UI that you see in this video. Alicia is one of our character artists / design artists, so she's been helping put together the general designs for Margot and some of the other generals you'll become more familiar with over time. And then Clarence is our recently onboarded composer. So he made the theme that you heard at the start of this video. I am onboarding a front-end dev because I realized I simply do not have the amount of time necessary to do everything for this project. That was a silly ambition. You live and you learn. A back-end dev, again, although there are many back-end solutions that exist nowadays, I think having somebody that specializes in that would be of use, even if they're just part-time. And then additional card artists. As you sort of saw before, we're doing a competition to find more card artists that want to work with us and fit the vision of the game. Game design itself, honestly though, even without having a completely full team, we've made a lot of progress. So the majority of UI elements, at least for playtesting purposes, are complete. And that even includes menus that might not even be released in the initial game. So we're trying to get ahead of all that. And a large amount of the mechanics have been defined as far as the structure of the game, the rule set, and just overall vision for how the game should be played. Of course, specifics may change, but I think the vision is here to stay as far as the gameplay mechanics themselves. And then marketing and engagement. So this is a little newer, at least on the marketing front. Did a bit of a Twitter gamble with a few $100s. In the past couple weeks, and it turned out pretty well. So each month we're going to set aside some funds for marketing for platforms like Twitter, YouTube, and some of these other ones on here. We're also going to continue to stay involved with various other social media platforms, build a new custom website in the next custom months, and probably some other stuff in this space. So if you're not into architecture, you can just tune this out. These are for the folks who like to see how things come together. Very briefly, to save you all the pain of hearing me speak through this, this is our current simple high-level architecture planning document for Blitz. So on the left-hand side here, you have you, me, the players of the game. They will interact with, of course, the front end of the platform, which is the game itself and probably the website. The game has several elements that have to come together for it to be playable. One, of course, you have to have a game that is able to be played and deployed on the platform of choice. For now, we're just going to stick with PC, but we are trying to make design choices that set us up for mobile success in the future, because trading card games specifically, because not all games, believe me, but trading card games specifically certainly makes sense to be deployed on mobile platforms like tablets. We need to stand up some cloud servers to, of course, allow for multiplayer matchmaking, platform services, because again, build simple. Don't do custom coding for the stuff that we don't have to custom code for. The website I won't speak too much about, but one of the main requirements will be to link your Ergo blockchain wallet to your account, because by doing that, it'll establish basically a data link that then allows that data to be sent for each user to some backend database. So for example, if I owned 2 different GAMEBOARD halves, then that would be in my Ergo wallet. And because it's in my Ergo wallet, a query, or I should say, a sending message will be sent to the game database, whatever database we choose to use, let's just say Firebase. That data will be stored in Firebase for my user, which will then be queryable and accessible by the game itself. I think, again, not to belabor each of these pieces, if you want to sort of look through it in your own time, you are welcome to. Getting to our then last core topic for conversation today, key risk to success. So what are we worried about? What are we worried about as far as the project goes? Number 1, minting. So this seems like a pretty easy to do, and honestly on some blockchains it is. For example, Immutable X on Ethereum, i.e. the layer 2 solution for Ethereum, can handle this really easily. Ergo being a layer 1 solution and also handling transactions a bit differently than something like Ethereum, has its own unique challenges when specifically ensuring that when a player exchanges their pack token, they are able to get 4 pseudo-randomly generated card tokens in exchange, right? So that's just like, you can picture somebody opening a physical pack of cards and they don't know what they're going to get. Same situation here, except digitally. The database, we just talked about a little bit. So we, of course, need to be able to store blockchain information, specifically Blitz blockchain assets, to a database to then be queryable by the game itself. Funds and resources, I think this one's, well, some of it's maybe obvious, but maybe some of it's not. The obvious piece is we're a small decentralized team. The non-obvious piece, perhaps, is that this is an entirely self-funded project by me. And so much of my card trading and appraising commissions and resources that I've gained over the years is going toward creating this game, mostly due to me being passionate about creating something. So fingers crossed it's successful. Speaking of game success, number one, again, most importantly, the game must be fun. Nobody will play it if it's not. Nobody's going to be interested if it's not. People must be interested, invested, and passionate enough about a game for it to have any degree of real success. You could see short-term success with a lot of these fluffed up NFT projects, but they will never have sustained long-term success. Maybe one in every 1,000 NFT projects will have a success, but at the end of the day, they're just NFTs, right? So we have to make something more than that. And then I think it's worth mentioning, because the past 3 years have been pretty crazy for me, that world events could always come into play. So, especially with us being a small team, one of our Macs actually is in the Ukraine, right? So you just never know, right? You never know. So we have to keep an eye on that sort of stuff and just all recognize that it exists out there. And that actually brings us to the end of the presentation for today. So what's next? I hope all of you enjoyed the video. I hope it was exciting for some of you. I hope that we grew a bit of faith in the project, maybe piqued your interest enough to go read the white paper, join the Discord, follow us on Twitter. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is where I'll be posting additional videos about Blitz TCG and many, many more discussion topics, maybe about game development, challenges that we run into and how we've addressed them, so on and so forth. Thank you all again for your time today. My name is Mick, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the future. See ya.